Shalom. Welcome to Shabbat Conversations. We're on episode number 2.
Oh no, dos.
Number 2, yes. And I'm excited because last episode we kind of introduced ourselves. We kind of tackled, how we met and all that kind of stuff. So this should be an exciting episode. We're going to tackle a new topic. Once again, my name is Avad, yours truly, and
Christiana.
my lovely wife. And today's topic, we're going to start off with what is the difference between someone that is religious and someone who has faith. Okay. So I think a good way to jump this off would be to talk about our journey, just jump into kind of our spiritual journey. And so I guess I can begin with, my upbringing. So growing up, my family was very irreligious. I didn't have a very spiritual family, folks that, really, not necessarily care, but people that were really super religious or churchy, so to speak. My family was very, much like, I believe in God, spiritual, but like they didn't really do the whole church thing, but I did have grandparents and things of that nature who went to church faithfully. So my grandma on my dad's side went to church a lot, and then my grandma on my mama's side was very heavy in the church as well. So whenever I visited them, I would always go to church. And even when I visited my aunt out in Palm Bluff, they always took me to church and stuff. So I had some experience with the church growing up. When I'm at home with my parents, they didn't really care that much and wasn't tripping about going to church like that. But when I visited my grandparents and aunts and uncles and things of that nature, they would take me to church. And so I always felt like I had like some kind of connection to God growing up. I never really felt super disconnected from God. I always felt like I believed in God. I felt like He was always there with me, but I just didn't know how to tackle the whole religion thing, or where to start at to read the Bible and all that kind of stuff. I just didn't really know. And so just majority of my life, I just kind of moseyed on, lukewarm, just going about my business. But then I had there's like the shift happened in college. So me and my friend, I'm not gonna give his name, because I don't know if he want me to say his name on a public platform, but
Have you ever had a dreams that you had you could you do you want you could do so you do you want
one of my brothers, we went to high school together. I pretty much knew him since elementary school, and then we ended up going to high school together, and we planned on going to A-State, so we decided to go to A-State together, Arkansas State University out in Jonesboro. Go Wolves. I'm not gonna put the sign up because it's, they might make a bit of talking about them devil worship.
Yeah,
But anyways, so we decided to go to college together. And when we got to college, we thinking, if we're gonna get to college, we're gonna turn up, go do the club stuff, and have that wild college experience. But as soon as we got to college, we start hanging around a lot of Christian people that's in the campus outreach sector of A-State. And so me and my friend, we started going to Bible studies. We started to, be more involved in the church. And so then, next thing you know, I meet my lovely wife. Obviously, we already went through all that spiel. And, I get baptized, I get born, I get born again. I'm born again Christian now. I'm involved in the church. I'm doing Bible studies. I'm leading youth ministry stuff. I'm helping around the church now. I'm, doing campus outreach stuff. And so there was like this shift in college where I became like this born again Christian, and as time progressed, I just always felt like there was something that was missing. I just couldn't really explain it. There's just something that was really just missing, and as me and my wife started to get closer and closer, she started to see that I was kind of being complacent in my relationship with God. Like I started kind of being stagnant. And so I remember just like yesterday, it was Valentine's Day of 2015 or 16. No, yes, Valentine's Day of 2016. And I'm thinking it's going to be a lovely day, romantic dinner, and just, being able to just grow with each other and have just a good romantic day. Boy, she hit me with a bombshell.
The day after her 37th birthday, I hired a team to orchestrate her 40th birthday. I hired a documentary team. I traced mommy's family roots. Her 40th birthday was going to be my thing.
It was going to be a splash.
It was going to be a splash. Mary J. Blige performed. I debuted the film, all of that. It was going to be the thing that lifted her out of this midlife crisis. And it was going to be my deepest, most beautiful proclamation of love. And she's told me that the party was the most ridiculous display of my ego.
Ooh.
Crushed, right?
Bombshell. Because she gave me a letter. And I'm thinking it's going to be a lovely letter, just talk about how much she loved me, and just how great this relationship is. I open the letter, I get to reading, and it's just talking about how, if you don't get yourself together, I don't think we're gonna be able to last. I don't think we're able to make it. You got to get right with God, and I need you to grow. I don't really see no growth in you right now, but I really need to see you grow and mature in God and all this kind of stuff. And I'm reading the note on Valentine's Day, like, dang, got like just gut punch, just a gut punch, bro. And so I was just like, man, and so there was moments like that happened throughout our relationship to where she would like check me and be like, bruh, why you ain't praying enough, man? Why you ain't involved enough? Like, it don't seem like you're really reading your word like that. Like, she would constantly poke me about this stuff all the time. Just poke me about this stuff all the time. Just about how I'm not what I need to be, right? And so I obviously knew that because I was lukewarm. Even though I did have a fire at first. I joined the church. I had that fire at first, but it really did fizzle out because, I was religious, but the faith wasn't there. So I joined the church because I felt not coerced, but I felt pressured to go to Bible studies. I felt pressured to go to church. I felt pressured to do certain things because of my friend group. So I started doing things because my friends were doing them and because that's what my group was doing. I didn't really have a relationship with God for myself. I was just doing a bunch of religious activity with no true understanding of what I'm doing or what I'm getting into. I just felt compelled to just fall in line and just do this religious stuff and but I don't have no relationship with God. I don't have no clue what he wants. I don't have no clue what his will is. I'm just doing religious activities. And so after a while, I just kind of start distancing myself from the church. I start studying a little bit more. And the more I start studying, the more I kind of start distancing myself from the church. It's just, to me, something wasn't sitting right. Then that's when the shift started to happen again. So I had one shift at the beginning of college when I became a Christian. And then as I start studying and growing in the word, and as I start having conversations with certain people, I have a friend who is a captain of IUIC now. I never forget, I sat down with him. We had a long discussion about the scriptures, about being Israel and about, all that kind of stuff. And so I started catching wind of the Israelite stuff. I was thinking, Israelites, the chosen people, Jews, what is this? Right? And so I'm reading, I'm having conversations with friends. And then I come in contact with a video on YouTube about how Solomon had locks and about how the Jews were black. I'm like, oh my goodness. The video, it like something sparked immediately. I started seeing about how the Jews were black and about the Israelites is this. Oh snap. It was like I was instantly sold. Like, it didn't take me a whole bunch of time to like try to figure it out. It's like, no, as soon as I start hearing about this stuff in the Bible and reading about it, I was instantly sold. I didn't go through a period where I don't believe that. No, man, get this stuff out my face. No, as soon as I heard it, it was like a light bulb went off. I was just completely sold, And so the identity piece really got me first. When I transitioned from Christianity to being an Israelite or to being a Messianic Jew, the identity piece really hit me hard because I felt like a majority of my life, I really didn't know my family lineage. I really didn't know where I came from. And so I just felt really lost about who I was. And so when I found out that, many of the African Americans, that came to America by way of the transatlantic slave trade were actually descendants of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, I was like, whoa, stuff starting to line up for me. So I'm going to let my wife kind of go into her background, her upbringing, and how she got to where she got.
My story is, I guess, a little different, or a lot different. I was raised in the church. I had always been in the church ever since I was a little kid. My family was always church going people. My parents raised us to be strong Christians, and that was something I always kind of, I guess, valued above anything, was just my relationship with God. Let's see. I was baptized at a young age, and I got quickly involved in church. Just, I think, how most people do, just in the choir and the youth group.
Yeah, that's
youth
how you always get
ministry.
involved by that choir, boy. They put you in the choir first.
I was a junior usher, so it's like church was a big part of my life growing up. Always was a big part of my life growing up. And then I started to kind of develop my own relationship with God. As far as I knew, probably around like 15 or 16 is when I really started to get my own relationship, as far as like reading and praying, and being intentional about trying to grow and trying to be a better version of myself, the person who God wanted me to be. And I think once I think it was probably senior year of high school, out of nowhere, which I don't think I never consciously thought about or didn't think about searching for truth. But for some reason, it just was put in my spirit to start praying that just God to reveal truth to me. And whatever that was, I had no idea what at that point. Like, I knew that the Bible was true. I knew that He was true, but I just wanted all His truth to be revealed to me. So I just started praying every day that God revealed me truth. And at this time, I would journal a lot. And in my senior year of high school, I really started journaling really heavy and like writing down prayers. And going into college, I continued to do that, and like just going back and looking at journals that I had. That was one thing I prayed really heavy for, was just for God to reveal to me, like, show me your truth, show me your truth.
Yo, and not to cut you off, but that was, I think, the question that sparked the Most High revealing things to me. Because as soon as I asked Him, once I start searching and seeking for Him in college, after the Christian thing wasn't really clicking to me. I remember after we had our disputes and stuff, and we went through what we went through, I remember vividly in my room crying, bawling, God, I want your truth. Just reveal me your truth. And when I asked that question, it was just like He started just throwing all kinds of stuff at me that started clicking in my head, so that's very true. When you ask that, it's like when you ask that question, certain things you ask, He'll reveal it to you. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so that was really kind of, I prayed that probably for about a year before, and I think it was just a part of a prayer that I kind of got used to saying, not necessarily that I was, I don't know, I didn't think much of it, but it was just something I prayed for every day, was that for Him to just reveal His truth to me, and whatever that was, just let me be okay with it. And that was before I even met Shad. So the journey had already started, I guess, for Him to reveal truth to me. And so then I got to college, I got really involved in campus ministries, a different campus ministry than what Shad was involved in. I got really involved in the campus ministry there, and we all were going to the same church off campus. But like, as far as like getting involved on campus and where we went to Bible study and stuff, that was separate. But it was one church that most of the college students went to at that time. So it just really, I just started trying to be intentional about like my outreach. I ran track in college for a little bit, so that is what I feel like I was called to do. Not necessarily run track, but like be around people who didn't value a relationship with God or didn't have a relationship with God. So I felt like that was my ministry.
Full blown evangelist.
No, I didn't. But I just felt like that was where I could fit in the most and where I would have the greatest impact.
Right.
So I really started to try to pour into my teammates, and I think it was beneficial. And then that was where I met my best friend, and our relationship really kind of flowered because of the commonality, I guess is the word, we had when it came to
good word.
Our religious beliefs and stuff. And so over time, I just was still asking for truth and still trying to do my best to learn what truth was, and at the same time trying to navigate I guess our friendship.
Right.
And like you said, I saw potential in Shad. earlier on, I guess, before we started dating. But that was the piece that was not there for me. I feel like he was putting effort in to like be involved in the church. He's putting effort in to have the, and I don't think you did on purpose to have the appearance that you were. I don't think you were a super religious like Bible thumper person, but
No, never been that.
you definitely put the effort in to on the outside everything looked fine. Like it was never, but something for me, if this was a relationship that we were gonna pursue, then I knew that you had to be stronger in your relationship with God.
Right.
Because I always, in my mind, I always had it set in my mind that I was gonna date to marry. I'm not dating to just be wasting time.
Right, wasting time, yeah.
And so the person I date, whoever that is that I date, is because I look at you as a husband or potentially my husband. So that was the biggest, I guess, hiccup in the beginning, was just like, I just feel like you could be there. You could be, your faith could be stronger, but it just was not. And so that was what caused, I guess, a lot of tension just in our friendship in general.
Yeah.
Because I think we both wanted to date, but it was just like, I don't know if I want to commit to
someone
dating you, and I'm not 100% sure. Yeah. So my thing was, I'm just gonna encourage you. In the beginning, I think it was overbearing. I just like this battle between like encouraging you and beating over the head, and I don't think I beat you over the head with it, but it was like those times that just like I feel like I keep reminding you, read your Bible, like easier. And I don't think it was necessarily in a bad way, but it's just like I wanted you to understand or be as diligent about reading your scriptures as I was, but I didn't want you to do it for me. And so that it was the balance of like, I want you to want to read your Bible as much as I want to read my Bible. I want you to want to pray as much as I want to pray. And it definitely was I knew it was a learning curve because you had been raised in the church, but I think that was the balance that it was like, I felt like at that time I had a really strong faith. And so I just wanted you to have that same thing if we were going to work out. Otherwise, because I didn't, and I remember telling you several times, like, at this point, like, I feel like we supposed to be together, but I know you can't, at this very moment, you can't leave my family.
Yeah, you sure. So you said a lot. And I think, and that's why I love her so much, because obviously some of my seeking was for her, because I felt like the Most High gave me confirmation that she was my wife very early on. So I didn't want to mess up an opportunity to be with, the person that was meant for me. So a lot of it was like, shoot, I need to get myself together so I can be with love of my life. And I love her. I know she's really good for me. I know she's not like other girls. I know has a lot of innocence and purity about her, to the point where it's like, man, yeah, I need to get myself together. I'm not right with the Most High, and I know that, and she knows that I'm not right with the Most High. And so I got to get myself together, not only just for her, but also for myself, and, just so we can have the relationship that we were meant to have, So that definitely was a factor in me searching, in me seeking, in me wanting to grow and build a relationship with the Most High. It was that, she saw the flaws in me, but she also saw the immense potential that I had to be a spiritual leader. She saw the patience. She saw the different things, the qualities that I had, just the moral compass that I had. Just she saw the things that I had. That was like, man, he's a really good guy, a really good man. But I just need you to be better on that spiritual side, So
and it was definitely hard because I battled with. I think that's what took us so long to like become serious to the point where it was like, okay, we are actually gonna try this, because I knew I wasn't gonna pursue a relationship with somebody that I feel like, and obviously you grow. I don't think you have to be perfect when you start a relationship, but you grow. But I didn't want to start a relationship because love is a dangerous thing if you jump into it but you're not ready. So I didn't want to start a relationship and then realize he don't want to change or he is not willing to change, and then but you've already invested especially for me, I had never had a boyfriend, and so I knew the first time I guess fell in love, that it was gonna be I was gonna be attached because I had never had anything like that before.
Yeah.
And so I was really cautious as pursuing or being okay with pursuing a relationship. So it took a lot of prayer for me personally, and it was a lot of asking God, like, if this not the person for me, please remove him from my life. If this not the person, and I prayed, and it was a hard prayer. Like, I would pray with tears in my eyes, like, if this not the person for me, please remove him from my life. Like, whatever it have to be, just remove him from my life. And we by this time we were best friends, like not even romantically, we were best friends. So I'm like, if God removed him from my life, I'm not losing my like love interest. I'm losing my best friend. And so that was really hard just to pray that. And then it got to the point where I think this is where I guess it coincided with when Shai really started to like search and read for himself, just to figure out what truth was. Cause I started, and I don't think it was because I prayed this, but I started to pray that he would desire a relationship with you, even if that meant us breaking up. Like if it takes us breaking up and never being friends again, never, like, I still desire for him to have a relationship with you. I want you to change his heart and for him to desire a relationship with you, not for our relationship's sake. Like, I want him to make it on his own, even if we never. If you are preparing him and perfecting him for another woman, I still want you to prepare him, perfect him to be a spiritual leader, even if that means it's not the spiritual leader of my house. And so that's when I feel like God really started revealing stuff to both of us, because we both truly wanted to know what truth was and like understand what it was that like he ultimately desired for our lives personally and in our relationship. And I feel like that's when it started to change for me, because it was just a lot of stuff that I guess was unsure about.
Yeah.
Not in just in our relationship, but just everybody. The transition through college is you just faced with a lot of stuff that you never seen or experienced before. So that was, I guess, the changing point for me in it all, and like my journey through it all. Because definitely when he first came to me about like following Torah and the importance of keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, and what it means to truly love God is to keep his commandments. That's when stuff like definitely went south. It definitely was not like an easy transition.
Yeah, because it was all this stuff was new to her. It was new to me too, you know. And this is new information that we are just now getting privy to, you know. I know, and a lot of times in the Christian church or in any religious sector, you know, we don't tackle the Torah or the Old Testament like that. You know, we just kind of read the Gospels, read the letters. You know, and that's what we know, with no connection with the Torah, understanding that the New Testament, you know, is connected to the Old Testament. It's a continuous story, you know. So growing up, we didn't know that. I never read a lot of the accounts in the Old Testament. I didn't know about, you know, Israelites. I didn't know what that word meant. I didn't know what that word was. I didn't know nothing about no Jews. I didn't know nothing about the law, statutes, and commandments. What the heck? I didn't know nothing about none of that stuff, you know. So once I started getting privy to all that stuff and connecting it to what they were saying in the New Testament and all that kind of stuff. And then obviously the identity piece about black people and people of my hue being the chosen people, all that kind of stuff. It's like, whoa, I never heard none of this stuff. And so it was all new, even to me. And especially her coming from a super religious background and to now having your world shocked by stuff that you didn't really have a clue about.
Yeah, and I had read the Old Testament, and at that point, I think about that point, I hadn't read the whole Bible. Yeah, but it's just like stuff you don't realize you read with
a westernized view.
Not even that. You just read with understanding, and not in a bad way. Obviously, you read with understanding that maybe you have been taught growing up. And of course, you have churches or religious leaders or parents. And as parents, you are supposed to teach what you believe to your kids. So it's just like
teach what you know.
That was how I guess it had been presented to me in several different ways, not just from my parents, but just from church events and Bible studies and stuff that I've been a part of. So it wasn't you don't think about it in a bad way, and I don't think it's even a bad way. It's just you understand you interpret the scriptures the way the more than like the people around you interpret the scripture. So that was kind of just the mindset that I had going into it, and this stuff I hadn't been presented. I was taught that the law was done away with, what like most people are taught, and if you follow the 10 Commandments, then you're good. But that it just was so many other layers that I had not, I guess, read or paid attention to myself.
Yeah.
And then once we didn't start. Shad presented the Torah like being still active and something that we should still try to live by, because that's the way we truly love God. He presented to me, and I didn't perceive it well in the beginning. But what he did in order for me to like not think he was pushing anything onto me. He was just like, okay, just read the Bible, and if you have questions, then we could discuss the question, but let's just read the Bible from cover to cover.
Yeah.
And we're not going to dive into any doctrine. We're not going to have this. I'm not coming with no different interpretation of it. Let's just read the Bible from cover to cover.
I wasn't manipulating nobody. I was just trying to give understanding, and if she didn't get it, I said, "Bro, if we read,
you still don't understand, and it is what it is. Like,
I guess we won't.
It just won't be." And that was the thing that it was like we can't coexist in a relationship.
Well, I tried my
with
best.
two different.
I tried my best to coexist. I remember one day, when I think we had broken up at this point. I was like, "Chris, it's okay. It's okay. We can be different. It's okay. You can be a Christian. I can be Israelite. It's okay. We can do it. We can make it work. We can make it work." No, please,
I knew that
it's
wasn't
okay.
gonna coexist. So I was like, at that point, it was like we don't. I was okay, and that was the point I had got okay. Like, I don't really put a relationship aside. Like, if this is not true, if Shad is going down the path that is not in your will,
Right.
correct him. Not just for me, but correct him because I care about his soul. And so, at that point, that did lead us to breaking up. Because I was just like, at that point, I'm not seeing what you're seeing. So,
She thought
we not like I'm not going. My soul was more important than anything.
doctrine is this?
So it's like I don't see what you see. So it is what I can't coexist in this space with you, and I knew we couldn't be friends because we had loved each other so much. I knew we couldn't be friends anymore. So it was just like once we broke up, it was tried. Yeah, we tried as hard as we could to not even be friends no more, which was hard. We had known each other for 3 years.
That's why I believe it's almost nearly impossible to go back. Like if you're in a relationship with a female, and it's like an intense, deep relationship, and y'all been intimate for years, and this is someone that you love, and then y'all break it off and try to go back to being friends. I just don't think it's possible. It's just. Because you already had that connection, so it's like, but that was just an aside. Back on top.
Anyway, so I guess this was junior year, I guess, when all this stuff really was going down.
Yeah.
And so it led to us breaking up. We kind of distanced ourselves in general and just kind of try to get on with life. But it just was always in the back of my head. And then I just started reading. I just started Genesis and just started reading. Mm-hmm. I think the first question that you asked me was, what was an Israelite? And I had a generic answer of it's the people in the Old Testament. But I really couldn't, I guess, articulate what those people were. I wouldn't I knew the Bible answer as far as but I didn't really put the connection between the Israelites. That's the people who the whole Bible is about. That was who God's chosen people were in the scripture. That was who the span of that, the majority of the Old Testament dealt with. So just from that standpoint, I was like, dang, I really don't know. So let me start reading. So I started reading just from Genesis. I started reading. And a lot of stuff that Child tried to explain months ago, when I started reading, I started to see it does say the laws forever, or it does say this is for generations, continual generations. I started
Perpetual.
continually so I started certain buzzwords started to kind of pop out to me that I had noticed before. I would gloss over before. Mm-hmm. And I think even more than just that, what kind of drew me to, I guess, the faith aspect more so than just the religious part of my relationship, was because once I started to read through the laws and read through the Old Testament and the things that he commanded his people to do then, I just started to think about this stuff would still be beneficial for us to do now, the dietary laws, that's still beneficial for us to do now. He desires for us to live a healthy life. So things that were why would I want to not do these things anymore? Why would I want to not spend intentional time with him on his feast days? Or why would I not want to not rest in him on Shabbat? Things that were why do we want to do away with these things? Those things just kind of started to stick out to me. And I just started to want to have a deeper desire to please him in the ways that he had asked his people to please him back then. And it started to not be. I think the main thing people do with like why the law is done away with is because it's burdensome and it's really hard to do. It's impossible to do.
Yeah.
And so
That's a lack of
started
understanding.
to see like this stuff is that he asking us to do is not burdensome. Like he wants us to be
beneficial.
free. Yeah, like it's really beneficial for us. The things he asks us to do is not burdensome. It's for us to be more free in him. So once I started to kind of, and it took a lot of prayer. It definitely was not an overnight thing. It took a lot of prayer. It caused a lot of tension and arguments in my family personally, because I think I didn't go about it in the right way, as far as like bringing questions to them, things that I had questions about. I was more so, I guess, scared or hesitant to talk to them about it because I knew it was different than the way that I had been raised. So I went about that the wrong way. And that's still something we're actually working through now as a family. But it just a lot of things transpire in a little amount of time.
Yes.
That it just all kind of, I guess, whirlwind in a way that we didn't imagine it was going to. But
All right, so that was just a little bit about our transition from then into now. And so now I think I see a big difference between being religious or religion and just faith in the Most High. Because I'm not big on titles. I'm not big on whatever you want to call yourself. I'm just big on, are you doing the will of God or not? Are you living by the word or not? So whatever you call yourself, it doesn't really matter because there's fallacies in the Jewish way of life. There's Jews that have groupthink. There's Muslims that have groupthink. There's Christians that have groupthink. There's different religions, the different Abrahamic religions that have groupthink and they don't have a personal relationship. They just do religious practice without really understanding what they're doing. So that's just universal. So I'm not going to bash one group over the other because every sector of religion has that. So when we look at religion, religion is more so an institution or a system of beliefs, right? That's what religion is. When we look at faith, faith is strictly just, okay, am I doing the will of God? Trusting in God, having faith in God, believing in the word of God without, the bias and the groupthink and just doing things because I was told to. And I think that's the beauty of the scriptures in its Hebraic form. And just from a Hebraic mindset is that the Bible, you're supposed to question. You're supposed to ask questions. You're supposed to, sharpen your skills, sharpen your mindset. And that's one thing that the Bible promotes. Even when you look at Yeshua, a lot of people look at when he was talking to the Pharisees and when they was asking questions as a bad thing. Now, there were sometimes the Pharisees was trying to trip him up. Mm-hmm. We do know that. But when you look at it from a lens of a Jew, a lot of the times they was asking questions, that was just part of the culture. To be inquisitive, to ask questions, to seek out rabbis and the sages to see what they think on certain topics. Mm-hmm. That was a common practice because growing up, Jewish kids and Jewish boys and Jewish girls went to yeshiva, they went to school, and they learned about the ways of God. They learned to recite the Torah. They learned to recite certain things. They learn once they get to the teenage age, they would actually go to the teacher or go to the rabbi or go to whoever, and they would ask questions. They would, seek out questions, and they would, have discourse and debate to be sharper in the Torah. Mm-hmm. That's how kids were raised. They were raised to debate, to have dialogue, to question certain things. That way they can have a full understanding of the faith. And I think that's what's lost in religion is that we're just taught to just believe it because I said so. That's just how I was raised. That's how my mom was raised, my grandma. That's how we did things from generation to generation. So just do it without any understanding. A lot of people don't know how to defend their faith, quite honestly. A lot of people do not know how to defend their faith at all because you just grow up. This is what it is. This is what I was taught. I don't really understand it. I'm just doing religious activity. I'm just doing religious stuff. But there's not an understanding of what you're doing it for. And you don't have that connection with what you're doing to the will of God. You're just doing stuff. And religious practice without, understanding, you're just doing activities. So I think that's the biggest difference between religion and faith is that religion, you just kind of do things because you're told. You just kind of do mundane things, but there's no really heart or desire to get closer to God or grow in character. And I think that's the biggest thing is that, if you're doing a bunch of things, but your character's not growing or you have a hidden agenda, then are you really faithful or are you just in a religion? Because Matthew 6 It talks about how not to do your alms before men, how not to show your right hand what your left hand's doing, all that kind of stuff, And so that just goes to show that, just doing works and with no understanding of what you're doing, with no true heart for God, it's just it's just religion. It's just religious activity, right? And once again, there's nothing wrong with doing stuff religiously, because we are supposed to religiously do things, religiously practice and do physical things. But when you detach, religion from relationship, now we have a problem, because the religious acts should coincide with relationship. It shouldn't just be mundane acts I'm doing just because I was told to do it. It should be because I understand this is what God wants. I do stuff religiously. But it's the other way around. We've detached the relationship. We've detached God from the scriptures. We've kind of put in traditions that don't have anything to do with Him. And so that's where religion comes in. And also another scripture in Titus that talks about how folks profess to know God but deny the works thereof, right? So you can profess, you can do stuff, but if you deny part of the book, if you deny things that were written down that says, "Thus says the Lord," and you just doing stuff because I was taught this and this is what I believe and this is what I know, and you're not willing to just read and grow and understand, you're just doing works. And so, a true faithful person will dive into the word, read what it says, and let it shape their life. And in religion, people, a lot of times in religion, you're closed minded to the point where you don't allow the word to shape your life. You just do religious stuff, you do certain things, and you're not willing to grow. You just kind of, you put a ceiling and a cap on God. It's like, this is what I know, this is what I'm gonna do. I don't need to know nothing else. But if you truly want a faith, you truly want a relationship with God, there shouldn't be no ceiling there. You should allow God to help you, to help build character, to help you morally, to help shape you, and to help you grow in all facets of your life. Right? That's true faith, is allowing Him to shape you and mold you. Right? Even when it's uncomfortable, even when there's certain things you believe that dang, that wasn't true. Just allowing Him to shape you and allowing Him to show you truth and walk in truth. Because a lot of times, people are scared, to walk in truth. It's like, man, you telling me this whole time this was wrong, or this whole time this was wrong, or this was wrong, and people are scared, and so it keeps them from truly going forward. That is the biggest difference, because to me, religion don't have to be bad. Once again, religion can be a stepping stone to you growing, right? It's all based on your heart's desire, right? So I'm not saying being a part of a religious sector is bad, because we're all in some sort of fashion a part of some sort of religious factor, right? Even us, we consider ourselves Messianic Jews, right? So we're all part of some kind of church, some kind of body of somebody, right? But we have to have relationship and be willing to allow the word from beginning to end to shape us, right? We can't discount certain things because we have the whole book. So you can't, disassociate one part from the other, especially if you don't understand it. You got to at least try to read and understand it first before you decide this don't make sense. You know what I'm saying? At least give yourself a chance to get all the information, And so we can't be a people that praise Most High with our lips, praise Him with our mouth, but like as in Isaiah says, that our heart is far from Him. Right? We can't be like that, because once again, that's a lot of times what religion does, that we do things with our mouth, with our lips, and we do physical stuff, but the heart's desire to do His will is not there. So I think that's the biggest thing. But what you think?
I kind of said things along the same lines. The biggest one, before I guess recording, I try to come up with my own definitions of both of them, or just how I looked at it. So I just said faith is action and relationship out of love and reverence for the Most High. And then you think about religion, it's just action out of tradition and habit. And their relationship or love isn't always there. So, and religion isn't a bad thing to be quote unquote or being a quote unquote religion isn't a bad thing. It's usually the starting point that most people have. I think that was clearly the starting point of your spiritual journey was joining the church. So it's not a bad thing, but I just think most people get there and they stop. There's not growth a lot of times, or even if there is growth, there's like you become stagnant in those sometimes, and that's whatever religion that is. You just become stagnant because you tend to stop seeking because you just feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So that's like the biggest thing for me. And I just think about, I thought about it from the standpoint of like when you get the word oftentimes uses milk versus meat. So I think a lot of times that's just like we get on the meat and we're getting some sort of substance. So that's enough. We're alive. But we don't desire to get meat. We don't desire to go deeper in our understanding or deeper in our relationship with God. So we just become stagnant on that meat. But He really desires for us to on the milk, and He desires for us to really dig into meat. But we just become complacent. We are okay with where we are, and we don't really truly want to grow anymore.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing for me was starting to gain understanding, even when we transitioned to following Torah. In the beginning, it very much was like the word said it, so let's implement it. The word says let's keep Shabbat, so let's keep Shabbat. But then over time, you start to pray like I don't want to just do it because you said I want to do it because I understand why you said it. And I think a lot of it's still stuff He's revealing to us, like the understanding of. But in the beginning, you pray for understanding, and when you gain understanding, that's when you truly gain the deeper love and desire to do it. So that's where I feel like that's where it transitioned for me from faith, from a this religious standpoint to trying to be truly faithful in my relationship with God. Because I feel like I truly desired a intimate relationship with Him to the point where whatever you ask me to do, if that's contrary to what I'm used to doing, I want to do it because I love you. And then you see that same thing in relationships that you have on earth. When you love somebody, you desire to do you want to do what they desire of you to do. That's just a natural. Love is an action word, so that's what you see in that. That was the biggest difference for me. I didn't have a super long answer.
Yeah, that's good because when you think about it, when you understand God more, like she said, your love for Him will grow. Because it's hard to love someone you don't know.
Right.
Just like think about it, human relationships. If somebody's a stranger to you, how are you gonna love on them? Like how can you truly, have a relationship with someone, an intimate relationship with someone that's a stranger? Not saying, because obviously the scriptures tell us to love, a stranger, love the sojourner, and all that kind of stuff, But how can you truly be intimate with someone that you don't know, right? So you can't say you love the Most High if you don't know Him like that. You know what I'm saying? So that's why it's important to grow in understanding. That way, your love for Him will grow, and then when your love for Him will grow, then you'll start seeing all kinds of changes. Your will becomes less important, and His will becomes more important.
And that kind of ties back into last week's episode, I guess. When you get in a relationship with somebody that's earthly or with the Most High, they explain ways. They show you ways they want to be loved, in a love language per se, and so God has explicitly shown the way He wants us to love Him and how He gave us His word. His instructions in the scriptures is how He is explaining to us how He wants us to love Him. Yeah. So it's not up to us. I think that was the biggest thing. It's not up to me to figure out how God wants to be loved. He gave us explicit instructions on how He wants us to love.
Even Yeshua said, if you love me,
you'll keep my commandments. So it's like He gave us ways and how He wants us to show love to Him. And so we can't just come up with our own ways and say, well, I think this is the way I want to love you. Because that is problematic in earthly relationships. I can't love Shad the way I want to love Him. I have to love Him the way He wants to be loved. And it's the same way with the Most High.
We
can't just choose to figure out what it is the way that we want to love the Most High. He explicitly tells us the way how He wants to be loved.
He has a love language, and we have to appease to that, His love language.
So it's up to us to figure out what that love language is, what those actions are that He wants us to love, and those actions are explicitly explained in Torah. So it's up to us to learn those ways he wants to be loved, and then implement that in our relationship. Because
And-
he knows how to love us.
Yeah.
He knows how to love us beyond what we know how to love ourselves. So the difficult part is us learning how to love him back.
Yeah, that's very true. So in the chat, if you have any, more topics that you want to hear about, please put it in the chat. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We want to keep we want to keep this going. So thank you all for your support. This has been Shabbat Conversations with Shadrik Avad and Christiana Avad. And so we hope to see you guys again next Shabbat. So peace and shalom to the family.
So